AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she criticized my life choices. I, 32F, have always had a fairly private and independent life. I live alone in a 3-bedroom house that I inherited from my grandparents about 5 years ago. I've always been a low-key person, and my home reflects that. It's cozy, minimalistic, and very personal. I work from home as a graphic designer, which gives me a flexible schedule, but also means I value quiet and uninterrupted space. I've never really been close with my sister, 30F, not because of anything specific, but we've always had very different personalities and lifestyles. She's outgoing, social, and thrives on drama, while I'm more introverted and cautious. Recently, she got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 33M, and immediately started talking about how she wants her wedding to be perfect. She's known to have very specific ideas and high expectations, so naturally, she began asking if she could use my house for her wedding. At first, I thought she was joking, but she was serious. She explained that my backyard was gorgeous and that the house had the perfect aesthetic for the photos she wanted. She asked for a 2-day window, one for setting up and one for the wedding itself. I immediately felt uneasy. My house is my sanctuary, and it's not designed for hosting events. I told her I wasn't comfortable having that kind of event in my space. She didn't take the answer well. She started bringing up things like how she had helped me move when I first got the house and how she had lent me money when I was between jobs. She said I owed her this one and that it would be such a special memory for both of us. I explained again that my house is where I unwind, work, and sleep, and that having dozens of people traipsing through would be stressful and invasive. I also added that I don't like hosting large gatherings in general. She called me selfish and dramatic, and said I was prioritizing my stupid comfort over family. That stung because I had always thought we were relatively close. Things escalated when she mentioned my recent lifestyle choices. I moved back to my hometown about 3 years ago after living abroad. I also decided not to get married or have children, which has always been a point of mild tension between us. She said that it was unrealistic for me to be so rigid and that maybe if I had kids or a spouse, I would understand the importance of family events. She even insinuated that my introverted lifestyle made me incapable of empathy for her needs. I was shocked because I had always considered myself supportive of her, even attending every major event she asked me to. Despite this, she continued pushing. She tried to negotiate by offering to rent a tent in the backyard, hire cleaners, and even pay for damages. I firmly said no each time, explaining that the emotional and logistical stress alone would be overwhelming. She started texting me multiple times a day, sending screenshots of Pinterest boards and layouts, implying that it would only take a weekend, and how bad could it be? At this point, I stopped responding directly and only gave brief replies, but she began sending passive-aggressive comments on social media, tagging me in posts about sisters who never help, and messaging family members to complain about me. My parents eventually got involved. They called me to ask if I could compromise a little for her special day. I tried to explain that I wasn't refusing to help in general, but my house was not the right space for the kind of event she envisioned. I offered to help her find a venue or assist with decorations, but they seemed to think I was being unreasonable. I felt cornered because no one in the family seemed to understand that hosting a wedding in my personal home wasn't just an inconvenience. It was an intrusion into my private life that I couldn't mentally or emotionally handle. Eventually, my sister went ahead and booked a small local hall for her wedding. She sent me a message saying, "I guess some people just don't care about family enough to make sacrifices," and I didn't respond. A few weeks later, she posted a lot of photos from the wedding, and I noticed she had used pictures of my backyard for my social media for inspiration without my permission. I felt disrespected and angry, but I haven't confronted her about that either. Now, a few months later, she has stopped speaking to me almost entirely and has been cold when we see each other. My parents are frustrated with me and hint that I should make amends because family is more important than comfort. I genuinely feel like I did nothing wrong. I did not refuse to help her. I just refused to allow my private living space to be used for an event that would disrupt my life and violate my boundaries. I'm starting to wonder if I'm truly being selfish or if my sister and parents are unfairly judging me because I don't conform to traditional family expectations. My friends all say I'm in the right, but it's hard when it feels like half my family sees me as a villain. I'm struggling with guilt and worry that this might permanently damage my relationship with my sister, even though I tried to offer alternative ways to support her. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding, even though she tried to guilt me into it and criticize my life choices. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to help my brother after he mismanaged his finances and now expects me to bail him out. I, 32F, have always been the responsible sibling in my family. My younger brother, Mark, 28M, has a habit of making impulsive financial decisions and then coming to me when things go wrong. Up until now, I've helped him occasionally, covering small bills, lending him money for emergencies, but I've always made it clear that these were exceptions, not the rule. My parents have tried to intervene over the years, but Mark is very stubborn and often ignores advice. Recently, things escalated. Mark decided to start his own business selling customized furniture. I was supportive at first. He has a talent for woodworking, and I thought maybe this time he could make something of himself. However, instead of doing proper market research or planning, he invested all his savings into equipment and a tiny studio space, without considering overhead costs or a marketing plan. Within 6 months, he had accumulated over $20,000 in debt. He also made some personal mistakes along the way, such as borrowing from payday lenders and maxing out credit cards. About a week ago, Mark called me in a panic. He had missed payments on several accounts, received collection calls, and now his studio landlord was threatening eviction. He said he didn't know what to do and expected me to lend him enough money to cover all his debts so he could start fresh. I was shocked. I asked him why he had not tried to make adjustments or reach out to the creditors for payment plans, and he said he didn't want to deal with all that stress. He said he was counting on me because I always help him. I told him no. I explained that I have my own financial obligations, mortgage, student loans, and retirement savings, and I couldn't afford to bail him out of a $20,000 debt. I also told him that enabling him would only reinforce his bad habits. He started yelling and accusing me of being selfish, saying I cared more about my money than my family. My parents got involved as well, and they tried to convince me to give him at least some of the money. They said I was too harsh, and that family helps family. I didn't budge. I offered to help him in other ways, like helping him create a realistic budget, negotiating with creditors, and finding part-time work to manage his expenses. I also suggested he consider selling some equipment or downsizing his studio to cut costs. He said those ideas were not fast enough and that he needed an immediate solution. Since then, our relationship has become very tense. Mark has stopped talking to me and has been posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about how some people only care about money, not family. My parents are frustrated and say I should just give him a chance and help him out, or else risk breaking family ties. I understand their point, but I also feel like I have boundaries for a reason. I don't want to set myself up for years of financial strain because Mark refuses to manage his own responsibilities. Here's the part I'm struggling with. I do care about him, and I don't want him to suffer, but I also feel like giving him money would just teach him that he can rely on me to fix his mistakes. I'm worried this might permanently damage our relationship if he resents me for refusing, but I also don't want to compromise my financial stability and values. So, AITA for refusing to bail my brother out financially after he mismanaged his business and personal debt. Some extra context. I have helped him in the past for amounts under $1,000, mostly for emergencies like car repairs or medical bills. He has a history of impulsive spending, like buying expensive gadgets and trips he can't afford. Our parents are financially comfortable, but have also expressed frustration that Mark doesn't listen to advice. Mark has no partner or spouse to help manage his finances. It's all on him. I have offered to help him create a long-term plan, which he has rejected. I feel like I'm caught between doing what's best for him long-term and facing the backlash from him and my parents in the short term. I also feel guilty because I know he's stressed and possibly embarrassed about the situation. I want to help him, but I also want him to take responsibility for his own life. I guess the core of my question is it selfish to say no when he's asking for a large sum of money that I simply cannot or should not give? AITA for refusing to let my younger sister live with me after she dropped out of college and lost her job? I, 28M, have always tried to be the responsible one in my family. I grew up in a fairly average household with two sisters, one older and one younger. My younger sister, Emily, 22F, has always been more free-spirited than the rest of us. She's incredibly creative, smart, and charming, but she struggles with commitment and responsibility. Our parents were very supportive of her, but I noticed early on that she often relied on charm and emotion to get what she wanted rather than following through on tasks or obligations. Fast forward to the present. I live in a one-bedroom apartment in the city where I work as a software engineer. I've been living alone for 4 years, saving money and slowly building a comfortable life. I'm proud of my independence and the routine I've established. I like things quiet, orderly, and predictable, which is why I find myself in a dilemma now. About 3 weeks ago, Emily called me, crying, saying she had been fired from her job at a small boutique where she worked part-time. She also told me she had dropped out of college after failing 2 semesters. She explained that she felt lost and didn't know where to go or what to do. After listening to her sob over the phone for an hour, I tried to calm her down and suggested she reach out to our parents first, since they were closer geographically. She said she didn't want to bother them and asked if she could stay with me until she got back on her feet. This is where the problem begins. My initial reaction was to say no. My apartment is tiny, I work long hours, and I value my routines and personal space. I also felt some resentment building because this isn't the first time she's relied on family members to bail her out. She has a history of quitting things when they get tough, and I've always felt responsible for helping her without her really putting in the effort to fix her own life. I tried to explain this gently over the phone. I said that I wanted to support her emotionally and help her figure out her next steps, but I wasn't in a position to offer housing. I offered to help her look for temporary rentals, connect her with job listings, and revise her resume, but I didn't want her living with me. She immediately became defensive and started crying harder, accusing me of turning my back on her and saying I didn't care about her. She even said, "You always care more about your stupid apartment and your stupid routine than your family." That hurt because it's true that I do care about my home, but I also care about her deeply. After a couple of days of tense texting, Emily decided to just show up at my apartment anyway. I was at work when she arrived, and when I got home, she was sitting on my couch with a suitcase, looking miserable but determined. I felt blindsided and overwhelmed. I explained again that this wasn't a good idea and asked her to leave. She refused, saying she had nowhere else to go and that I had to help her. I got frustrated and told her that if she didn't leave, I would call my parents to intervene. Emily eventually left that night, but she's been sending me daily messages asking if she can stay, and the tone alternates between pleading, guilt-tripping, and anger. Our parents are now caught in the middle. My mom called me and said I should let Emily move in temporarily, insisting that families should stick together and support each other during tough times. My dad agreed, but he also said I have a point about needing boundaries. I understand where my parents are coming from, but I also feel like letting her move in would create a lot of tension. My apartment is very small, so there's no privacy for either of us. I'm worried about falling into the same pattern where I end up doing all the emotional labor and logistical work while she gets comfortable without making any real effort to improve her situation. I also worry that setting this precedent would make it much harder to say no in the future if she ever needs help again. I've tried explaining my concerns calmly, but Emily refuses to listen. She says I'm selfish and heartless, and I feel like I'm being portrayed as the bad guy. I've offered other ways to help her, including helping her find a cheap sublet or even lending a small amount of money for the first month somewhere else. But she doesn't want any of it. She just wants to move in with me. I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting. On one hand, she's my sister, and I want to support her in a meaningful way. On the other hand, I'm not sure it's healthy for either of us if she moves in, given her track record and my need for personal space and stability. I've tried to set boundaries respectfully, but she's not respecting them. The last thing I want is to damage our relationship permanently, but I also don't want to compromise my own well-being and lifestyle. So, AITA for refusing to let my younger sister live with me after she dropped out of college and lost her job. I should add that I've also suggested professional help. Emily has been very stressed and seems to have some anxiety and depression, so I offered to help her find a therapist. She brushed it off, saying she doesn't have time or money for that right now. That made me even more hesitant because I feel like she's expecting me to be her full support system without taking steps to help herself. I'm now stuck in a position where our parents think I'm being unreasonable, Emily thinks I'm being cruel, and I feel guilty but also defensive. I want to help her, but I also feel like helping doesn't mean compromising my entire life and mental health. I'm trying to figure out the balance between supporting my family and enforcing boundaries, but every time I say no, I feel like the villain. I've thought about letting her move in temporarily, but I worry it will just reinforce the pattern of her depending on others instead of building independence. She has friends in the city she could stay with temporarily, and I offered help set that up, but she says they're too busy. I guess I just don't know how to be compassionate without letting her take over my life. It feels like a lose-lose situation, and I'm hoping for perspective from people who understand family dynamics, boundaries, and the challenges of supporting someone who struggles with responsibility. I'm open to suggestions on how to help her without letting her move in, or if there's a way to do it that doesn't compromise my well-being. But right now, I feel like I'm being pushed into a corner where I either give up my space and sanity or risk being seen as the bad brother. AITA? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? AITA here, and I'm still torn about this situation, but I feel like I need to share it and get some outside perspective because the fallout has been worse than I could have imagined. This is going to be long, but I want to lay everything out as clearly as possible. My sister, let's call her Emily, is 5 years younger than me. Growing up, we were close in some ways, distant in others. She always had this bubbly personality that drew people to her, while I was more reserved and serious. Our relationship was complicated, but I always tried to be supportive of her, even when we didn't see eye to eye. Fast forward to college, I started noticing a shift in how Emily talked about dating. She's been in a few serious relationships before, but nothing ever felt permanent. About a year ago, she introduced us to her fiancé, whom we'll call Mark. I'll be honest, my first impression of him was neutral. He was polite, easy to talk to, and seemed to genuinely care about Emily. But after a few months of seeing them together, I started noticing some red flags. At first, it was small things. He'd make slightly condescending jokes about my career, I'm a teacher, or subtly undermine me in conversations. Emily laughed them off, saying I was too sensitive. Then it escalated. He began criticizing my lifestyle choices, my hobbies, and even my friends. It felt like he was trying to isolate Emily from our family by making me seem overbearing or negative. I tried discussing it with Emily, but she always brushed it off, saying I was misinterpreting his intentions. Things came to a head during the holidays last year. Emily and Mark hosted a small family dinner. During the evening, Mark made a pointed comment about my job being safe but uninspiring, right in front of my parents. I tried to respond politely, but he interrupted me, saying, "You really need to loosen up. Life's too short to be so rigid." It felt belittling, and the more I tried to defend myself, the more he laughed. Emily didn't intervene. She just smiled awkwardly and changed the subject. After that, I started noticing a pattern. Every family gathering, he'd make subtle digs at me or my husband. I'm married, often disguised as jokes. He'd also try to control conversations, redirecting them toward his achievements and opinions. It became exhausting to be around him. I tried to distance myself politely, but Emily kept insisting that I needed to be more welcoming and that he meant no harm. 6 months ago, Emily announced her engagement. Naturally, family excitement ensued, but I felt a deep unease. When she asked me to be part of the bridal party, I hesitated. I expressed my concerns privately to Emily, saying I didn't feel comfortable standing by her side because of how Mark treated me and my husband. I also mentioned that I was worried about potential conflicts on the wedding day. She was upset, but promised me she would talk to Mark about it. I thought that would be enough. Weeks went by, and nothing changed. Emily kept sending me updates about dress fittings and schedules, but the underlying tension never improved. Mark's behavior became more blatant. He'd post passive-aggressive comments about family members on social media and even tried to invite only certain relatives to pre-wedding events, which included excluding my husband and me from a rehearsal dinner. Emily initially apologized, but then said it was just Mark being stressed and that I should let it go. 2 weeks ago, Emily officially asked if I would attend the wedding. I told her honestly that I couldn't in good conscience participate or attend because I didn't feel safe or respected around Mark. I emphasized that my refusal wasn't about her personally, but about protecting my mental health and preserving my family's well-being. Emily's response was a mix of anger and disbelief. She accused me of being selfish and said I was putting Mark above her. She even suggested that my husband and I were trying to sabotage her happiness. The family has since split into sides. Some relatives support my decision, understanding that Mark's behavior has been problematic. Others think I'm overreacting and that I should suck it up for Emily's big day. Emily hasn't spoken to me in more than a week, and Mark has made public posts implying that I'm being dramatic and controlling. The tension has grown so intense that I feel like attending the wedding would lead to a major confrontation, which I'm not willing to risk. I keep thinking about the what-ifs. What if Mark changes and becomes more respectful? What if I'm seen as the villain in the family narrative forever? I also wonder if I'm overreacting and being too rigid about my boundaries. On the other hand, I've never felt this level of unease around someone close to my family, and I truly believe that attending would be harmful for me emotionally. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé, even though it's causing a major family rift? I really want to hear unbiased perspectives because I'm feeling torn between loyalty to my sister and protecting myself. AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after she tried to fix my life without asking. I, 32F, have always been the responsible, quiet type, while my sister Lila, 29F, is more of a free spirit, charismatic, outgoing, and known in our circle for her solutions-oriented approach to everyone's problems. Our personalities have always clashed a bit, but until recently, we managed to coexist without major drama. That is, until she crossed a line I can't seem to forgive. A few months ago, I started a new job in a different city. It was a big career move, but one I was really excited about. I live alone, manage my own finances, and overall, I like to do things my way. I've always been independent, and I'm proud of that. Lila, however, has a habit of thinking she knows what's best for me. She frequently gives unsolicited advice, but I've usually brushed it off because, well, she's family. Things escalated when I mentioned to her in passing during a phone call that I had been feeling a bit lonely in my new city. She responded not with empathy, but with a full-blown plan to improve my life. She said she had been researching apartments closer to my office, thinking I'd enjoy a shorter commute, and she had already made a list of several better neighborhoods and perfect apartments. She told me she had even contacted a few landlords to inquire about availability. I told her I appreciated her concern, but I wanted to settle in my own way. I assured her I was happy where I was and wanted to figure things out myself. She didn't take that well. She said, "You're not seeing the big picture. You don't know what's best for yourself. I'm just trying to help you." I explained that I understood her intentions, but it felt controlling. She got quiet, and I thought the conversation was over. A week later, I got a package in my apartment. Inside were keys to one of the apartments she had picked out and a note saying, "I reserved this for you. You can thank me later." I was furious. Not only had she acted without my consent, she had essentially made a major decision for me, my living situation, without even asking. I called her immediately, and she was defensive, saying she just wanted to help and that I should be grateful. I told her no, I would not move, and that I felt violated. She accused me of being ungrateful and stubborn, and then hung up. Since then, Our interactions have been tense. I didn't talk to her for a few weeks. Eventually, she called me crying, saying she didn't mean to upset me and that she just wanted to help me live my best life. I told her I didn't want an apology that ignored the core issue. She had crossed a boundary and taken control over something that was entirely mine to decide. She tried to argue that she was my sister and that family should look out for each other. I said I agreed, but family should also respect boundaries, and hers had been completely disregarded. She now refuses to speak to me directly unless I apologize for overreacting and not appreciating her efforts. My parents are caught in the middle. They think I should apologize to her to keep the family peace, but I honestly don't feel that I did anything wrong. I understand she meant well, but the scale of her actions, reserving an apartment for me without asking, is not something I can just brush off with a simple apology. I feel like she's trying to gaslight me into believing I'm the one in the wrong for asserting my independence. My friends are split. Some think I should apologize to mend the relationship, while others say my sister's behavior was invasive and controlling, and I have every right to be upset. To make matters worse, she started subtly messaging me on social media, tagging me in posts about helping siblings improve their lives, and sending articles about how to support family properly with messages like, "Just thought you'd find this interesting." It feels passive-aggressive, and I haven't responded. I am afraid that if I respond, I'll be drawn into another argument. I'm also worried about the long-term implications for our relationship. I do love my sister, and I don't want to cut her out completely, but I also cannot pretend that what she did was okay. It's not about an apartment. It's about autonomy and respect. I'm trying to set boundaries, but she seems to interpret boundaries as rejection. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister for overreacting to her help when she made a major life decision on my behalf without my consent. I feel like I'm standing up for myself, but part of me worries that I might be overreacting and damaging our relationship irreparably. The tension is exhausting, and every family gathering or message feels like walking on eggshells. I try to calmly explain my side multiple times, but she insists that I'm the one in the wrong. I don't know how to proceed without compromising my own boundaries or ignoring the hurt she caused. I want to maintain a healthy relationship, but I also want her to acknowledge the seriousness of what she did. I don't think a simple apology for being upset is sufficient. She needs to understand that taking unilateral action in someone else's life, especially an adult sibling, is not acceptable, no matter how well-intentioned it is. I'm sharing this because I feel torn between defending my independence and preserving my family relationships. I want to do what's right, but I also want to be respected. How do I navigate this situation without betraying my own principles? Has anyone dealt with a situation where a well-meaning family member crossed boundaries so significantly that saying sorry feels wrong? I want to handle this with integrity, but I also don't want to lose my sister entirely. I just don't see how I can apologize for refusing to let someone control my life. But maybe I'm missing something. Is there a middle ground, or am I truly the asshole for standing my ground? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I, 28F, have always been close to my older sister, Lily, 32F. We grew up inseparable, shared everything, and even lived together in college. Over the past few years, our relationship has gone through ups and downs, mostly because of life changes, jobs, relationships, and moving to different cities, but I always thought we'd be okay. Recently, though, something has happened that has me questioning everything. Lily got engaged to a man named Derek, 34M, about 6 months ago. I met him a few times before the engagement, and honestly, I didn't like him. He seemed controlling, had a superiority complex, and made a few subtle but pointed remarks about my career and lifestyle choices that rubbed me the wrong way. I tried to dismiss it as first impression jitters, but as months passed, my discomfort only grew. After the engagement, I started noticing patterns that really disturbed me. Derek would frequently text or call Lily to check up on her. He made comments about how she should dress or behave at social gatherings, and he often criticized her friends, including me, in ways that felt unnecessary and invasive. During one dinner, he made a joke about how I was overly sensitive and dramatic for expressing my opinions, which really hurt. I tried to address it politely, but he just laughed it off and continued making snide comments throughout the evening. I expressed my concerns to Lily, but she brushed them off. She said, "Derek is just joking. Don't be so serious," or "You're being too harsh. He doesn't mean it like that." I tried to be patient, thinking maybe I was overreacting, but Derek's behavior only escalated. He started sending me condescending texts when Lily wasn't around, suggesting I was selfish or that I needed to get my life together because I wasn't married yet. 2 months ago, Lily formally asked me to be her maid of honor. I felt conflicted because I wanted to support my sister, but I was deeply uncomfortable with Derek's attitude toward me. I asked her if it would be okay if I kept some distance and limited interactions with him, but she insisted I'd have to accept him fully as part of her life if I wanted to stand beside her on her wedding day. Last week, things came to a head. Lily invited me and a few family members over to go through the wedding guest list. Derek was there, and the moment I walked in, he made a sarcastic comment about how I always like to stir the pot at family events. I ignored it at first, but as we went through the guest list, he continued to make side comments about my choices, my friends, and even my dietary preferences. I was fuming inside, and I could see that Lily was starting to get annoyed with my reactions. After the meeting, I told Lily I couldn't do it. I explained that I couldn't, in good conscience, stand beside her while Derek treated me like this and undermined me at every turn. I tried to emphasize that it wasn't about her, but about the toxic behavior I had witnessed. I offered to support her in other ways, helping with planning, attending the ceremony as a guest, or assisting with decorations. But I could not be her maid of honor with Derek's presence dominating every interaction. Lily was devastated. She accused me of being selfish and told me I was overreacting. She said she couldn't understand why I would let someone she loves ruin our relationship. She claimed that I was being dramatic and that she expected more support from her sister. Our parents got involved, and they tried to mediate, but both sides dug in. My parents feel like I'm making Lily choose between me and Derek, which I have no intention of doing. I've repeatedly told them it's about setting boundaries, not choosing sides, but they argue that my absence will hurt Lily more than any behavior Derek could exhibit. I feel trapped. On one hand, I love my sister and I don't want to hurt her on her wedding day. On the other hand, I cannot tolerate Derek's behavior without compromising my own mental health and sense of self-respect. I've been called dramatic, selfish, and even ungrateful, but I honestly feel like I'm trying to be reasonable and protect myself while still supporting my sister in the ways I can. I've even considered attending the ceremony, but avoiding Derek entirely. But given that he will likely be all over the wedding events, I don't see how that would be possible. I worry that my absence will create a rift with my sister that may never heal. At the same time, attending and being subjected to Derek's condescending behavior seems unbearable. I'm stuck in this impossible position, and I can't tell if I'm being too rigid or if I'm justified in refusing to participate in a way that puts me in constant conflict. I've lost sleep over this and try to find compromises, but every solution seems to result in someone being hurt. So, AITA for refusing to be my sister's maid of honor because of her fiancé's behavior toward me. I know family loyalty is important, and I've tried to balance that with my own boundaries, but I also don't want to create lasting resentment with my sister. I'm hoping for some clarity or perspective because right now, I feel completely torn. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after what happened last Christmas. I, 29F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emily, 26F, but over the past year, things have become tense due to her fiancé, Mark, 28M. I want to preface this by saying I generally consider myself a laid-back person, but last Christmas pushed me over the edge, and I've been trying to figure out if I overreacted. Emily and I grew up in a small town, and our parents passed away when we were teenagers, so we've relied on each other heavily. I've always been the responsible one, handling bills, taxes, and life logistics, while Emily is more spontaneous and free-spirited. When she met Mark 2 years ago, I liked him at first. He seemed funny and charming. However, over time, little things started adding up. Fast forward to last November, Emily got engaged, and of course, everyone in the family was excited. Emily lives in the city about 2 hours away, and Mark lives with her. I live alone in a small but cozy apartment, which I've painstakingly decorated and maintained. I love hosting family during holidays, but I also value my personal space and boundaries. When Emily and Mark asked if they could stay at my place for Christmas, I hesitated. I told them my apartment is small, and while I love having them over for dinner, I wasn't sure it was comfortable for an overnight stay. Emily got upset, saying, "We're family. It's Christmas. You don't have to make it so complicated." I explained that I didn't want to feel crowded and that I had work on December 26th, so it wouldn't be ideal for them to stay. She rolled her eyes and said, "Fine, we'll figure it out." But I could tell she was disappointed. A week before Christmas, Emily called again. This time, she sounded hurt, almost pleading, saying Mark's parents couldn't host them this year, and they had nowhere else to go. I tried to compromise and offered that they could stay one night, but no longer. I also suggested they could celebrate Christmas Eve with me and then go to a hotel or back to her place. Emily seemed relieved and agreed. So Christmas Eve arrives. I decorate my apartment, cook dinner, and am ready to have a nice evening. Emily and Mark show up around 5 p.m. Things are normal at first. Laughs, exchanging gifts, the usual family banter. After dinner, I noticed Mark was unusually loud and made a few offhand comments about how small my apartment is. I laughed it off, thinking he was joking. Things went downhill when we were playing a board game. Mark started criticizing the way I arranged the furniture and even commented that my holiday decorations were kind of cheap. Emily laughed nervously, but I felt humiliated in front of her. I tried to brush it off and suggested we just continue with the game. Around 10 p.m., I told them it was getting late and reminded them that they could only stay one night. Mark gave me a look and said, "Well, it is Christmas. We shouldn't have to leave just because it's late." I firmly told him no, explaining again that I had work the next day, and it wasn't about the holiday, it was about respecting my space. He huffed and sat in the living room sulking. Emily tried to mediate, but eventually said nothing, leaving me to enforce the boundary. The next morning, I woke up to find Mark had left all the lights on, the heater blasting, and my kitchen in disarray. I was frustrated, but tried to ignore it. Later that day, Emily messaged me asking if they could stay another night because Mark felt uncomfortable going back to their apartment so early. I said no, reiterating that I had set boundaries and expected them to be respected. Emily got angry, saying, "You're being ridiculous. It's Christmas. Can't you just be nice for one night?" I explained that being nice doesn't mean letting someone disrespect my home and personal space. Mark has always had a history of being manipulative. In college, Emily mentioned he would guilt-trip his friends into paying for his meals, or lending him money, which I didn't know fully until Emily started telling me small stories over the months. I realized that his behavior at my place wasn't a one-time thing, but part of a pattern. I felt strongly that if I let them stay another night, it would send a message that he could walk all over me without consequences. After Christmas, Emily started giving me the silent treatment. She sent me a long text saying that I ruined their holiday and that I was being selfish and controlling. She even implied that I didn't love her if I wasn't willing to make sacrifices for her and Mark. I didn't respond at first because I didn't want to escalate the situation. Eventually, I told her I loved her, but that respecting each other's boundaries is also part of love. She hasn't spoken to me much since then, and it's been 2 months. My friends are divided. Some say I was right to enforce boundaries, and that Mark's behavior was unacceptable, especially considering he had been rude and manipulative. Others say that it was Christmas, and I could have been more accommodating, especially since Emily was caught between me and Mark. I've been questioning myself constantly. On one hand, I hate the idea of being estranged from my sister over one holiday. On the other hand, I don't want to allow someone into my home who clearly doesn't respect me and my space. I also fear that if I bend now, it will set a precedent where Mark and Emily assume they can always stay over, ignoring my boundaries. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my apartment after the way he acted last Christmas. I tried to compromise, offered alternatives, and set clear boundaries, but it seems like Emily expects me to prioritize her and Mark's comfort over my own. I want to maintain my relationship with my sister, but I also don't want to compromise my principles or my home. Has anyone dealt with a similar situation? Am I being too rigid, or is it reasonable to protect my space and enforce boundaries, even with family? I genuinely want to hear different perspectives because I keep replaying the events in my head, wondering if I handled it fairly or if I could have done something differently without letting Mark's behavior slide. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she insulted my partner in front of the entire family? So, here's a long story that's been weighing on me for months, and I honestly don't know if I'm being unreasonable. I, 28F, have a sister, Lily, 32F, and we have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but also competitive. Lily is very perfectionistic and likes to control everything around her. I have my own opinions and lifestyle, and she has always been vocal when she disapproves. About a year ago, Lily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 35M. When she told me, I was genuinely happy for her, though I knew that planning her wedding would be intense because she's very particular. She immediately started talking about budgets and who would pay for what. She is pretty well off, and Mark comes from a wealthy family, so I assumed they would cover most of the costs. However, Lily insisted that certain things should be shared between family members, including me, which I didn't mind in principle. The problem started when she began asking about the guest list and seating arrangements. She wanted my partner, Alex, 30M, to behave in a very specific way. I didn't think much of it initially, but things escalated quickly. One day, she called me and said, "You need to make sure Alex doesn't embarrass me at the rehearsal dinner or wedding. I don't want him acting like a slob in front of my friends." I was confused because Alex is polite and well-mannered, but she continued, saying things like, "He's too casual, and I don't want him wearing sneakers or talking about video games during my big day." I tried to brush it off, thinking she was just stressed. Fast forward to the bridal shower. I went with Alex, who was trying to be friendly with everyone. Lily suddenly pulled me aside and said, "Why did you let him talk to Aunt Judy about your boring job? You're going to make everyone think we don't take things seriously." I was taken aback, but didn't respond aggressively. Later that evening, she made a comment in front of the family. "Alex really doesn't get social cues, does he? I guess some people are just uncultured." Everyone went quiet, and Alex looked shocked. I apologized to him privately and tried to move past it, thinking maybe she just meant it as a joke. Then came the engagement party, which was even worse. Lily again made several snide comments aimed at Alex, mocking his interests and even comparing him unfavorably to Mark, saying he doesn't seem like the type to handle a real family. I was furious, and Alex was hurt. After the party, we had a long conversation about whether we should even attend the wedding if she continued treating him this way. I wanted to avoid drama, so I decided to still be there, but I made it clear to Lily that she couldn't insult him in front of people anymore. The final straw came when she sent me a detailed list of items she expected me to pay for. Some of them were traditional contributions, which I was fine with, but she included things like a specialty floral arrangement, part of the catering, and a custom gift bag for each guest. The total amount she wanted me to cover was over $3,000, which is a lot for me since I'm renting an apartment and saving for a house. I told her I could contribute a reasonable amount, but I couldn't cover everything. Her response was shocking. "If you love me, you'll do it. Otherwise, maybe you shouldn't come." I was taken aback, but I tried to reason with her. I explained that while I was excited to celebrate her marriage, I didn't think it was fair for me to be responsible for a huge part of her wedding, especially after she had repeatedly insulted my partner. She replied in a text, saying, "Alex has to learn to behave. If you can't control him and pay your share, maybe your family doesn't belong here." At this point, I was done. I told her I would attend the wedding, but I would not be paying for the additional items. I also told her that if she made any more public insults toward Alex, we would leave. The wedding day arrived, and things were tense. Lily tried to ignore the issue, but she couldn't help herself. During the ceremony, she whispered loudly enough for nearby guests to hear, "I can't believe you brought someone like him into the family." Alex heard it, and I nearly lost it. I told her we could leave if he wanted, but he insisted we stay. The rest of the day, she made several more passive-aggressive remarks, but I mostly ignored them. After the wedding, I found out from my parents that Lily had been complaining that I didn't contribute as much financially. She even told some relatives that I didn't care about the family and didn't love my sister enough to help with her dream wedding. This hurt a lot because I had put in effort by attending events, helping with minor tasks, and being there emotionally. I had tried to support her in ways that didn't involve me handing over thousands of dollars. My parents think I overreacted and should have just paid for everything. They say it's traditional to contribute to a sister's wedding, and that my refusal was disrespectful. My friends, on the other hand, say that I set a necessary boundary and that no one should be insulted in front of family, especially when they are contributing financially. I haven't spoken much to Lily since the wedding, and the tension is palpable whenever the family gathers. I feel conflicted because I want to support my sister, but I also don't want to tolerate verbal attacks toward my partner, especially not in front of everyone. I keep replaying the wedding in my head and thinking about how much Alex was hurt. I feel like I did the right thing by standing up for him and setting financial limits, but I also wonder if I'm being selfish or dramatic. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she insulted my partner in front of the entire family? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after ruining her wedding? This is going to be long because there's a lot of context. I, 29F, have always been close with my sister, Emily, 32F, but we have very different personalities. I'm blunt, outspoken, and sometimes socially oblivious, whereas Emily is extremely detail-oriented, traditional, and values appearances and social norms. Our parents were never much help in mediating our differences, so over the years, we've had our fair share of arguments, but nothing ever major, until her wedding. Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 33M, about a year ago. From the beginning, she wanted a perfectly curated wedding, which included strict guest lists, coordinated outfits, and even very specific wording on invitations. I try to respect her wishes, but my personality clashes with hers, especially around people. I'm not the kind of person who follows subtle social cues well, and she tends to hold grudges over even small things. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emily asked me to host the bridal shower. I was fine with this, but as I started planning, it became clear that the guest list she gave me was incomplete and inconsistent with the final wedding invite list. I messaged her about it, asking if I should include some of the friends she had mentioned at first but weren't on the final list, and she said, "Just stick to this list. Don't add anyone." Fine, I thought. The bridal shower ended up being more stressful than I anticipated. Some of the women invited canceled at the last minute. Some friends didn't RSVP, and the venue had strict rules I wasn't aware of. On the day of the shower, one of Emily's coworkers arrived with a +1, even though the invitations clearly stated no guests. I tried to handle it politely, explaining the rules, but she got upset. At that point, I was frustrated, juggling gifts, decorations, and upset guests. When Emily arrived, she immediately noticed the situation and scolded me for not anticipating her guest's behavior. I apologized, but I felt like she was blaming me for something beyond my control. Fast forward to the wedding day. Emily's instructions were very strict. No unplanned speeches, no last-minute surprises, everyone has to be seated on time, and absolutely no interruptions during the ceremony. Mark's family arrived early and, as expected, were fussy about seating arrangements. I noticed that one of the ushers seemed overwhelmed, so I stepped in to help guide people to seats. That was my first mistake, according to Emily. She yelled at me in front of the ushers and some family members for taking over her wedding. I apologized immediately and stepped back. The second and biggest issue happened during the ceremony itself. Emily had hired a small string quartet to play specific pieces when she walked down the aisle. However, the quartet's cellist accidentally dropped a music sheet right as Emily was about to start walking. I instinctively ran forward to help, trying to hand the sheet back. The movement startled the musician, causing a note to be played off-key. At the same time, I tripped slightly over a loose cable and bumped into the edge of the platform. I didn't fall, but it made a loud noise. Emily froze, then started crying and yelling that I had ruined the perfect moment and that now everyone would remember her wedding for my clumsiness. I tried to explain that it was an accident and that I was only trying to help, but she wouldn't hear it. She refused to look at me for the rest of the ceremony and even asked Mark to keep me away from photos. Her friends started whispering, and I felt humiliated. I stayed seated, trying not to cause more disruptions, but she continued glaring at me during the reception. Later, at the reception, Emily's maid of honor told me I should apologize properly, not just shrug it off. I refused. I explained that yes, my actions were clumsy, but I didn't intentionally ruin anything, and the idea that a single note or a small stumble could ruin the perfect wedding was absurd. She said that Emily would never forgive me unless I wrote a formal apology letter. I refused to do that too. The day ended with minimal interaction between me and Emily. The next morning, she called me, yelling over the phone about how I had embarrassed her in front of everyone, and that no sister should behave this way. I stood my ground, telling her again that it was an accident and that her wedding being perfect was not my responsibility. She said she never wanted to speak to me again and blocked me on social media. Our parents are upset with me. They say I should apologize to repair the relationship. Mark, Emily's husband, said I should consider writing a note, but I feel like that would be insincere and unfair. My friends think Emily is overreacting and that I did nothing wrong by trying to help in a chaotic situation. Some even said the whole thing sounds like Emily had an unrealistic expectation of perfection and projected her disappointment onto me. I haven't spoken to Emily in over a week, and she hasn't returned my messages. I keep wondering if I'm actually the AH here. Should I have written a formal apology, even though I truly feel like I didn't do anything intentionally wrong? Or is Emily just being unreasonable and expecting a level of control that no one could realistically provide during a wedding? I don't want to burn the bridge with my sister, but I also don't want to apologize for something that wasn't my fault. People are telling me that family relationships sometimes require humility, but I feel like she's punishing me unfairly for being human. So, AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after ruining her wedding? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened last week? So, I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. We've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we fought a lot, and while we eventually settled into a kind of peaceful coexistence in adulthood, there's always been some tension, mostly because she can be manipulative and tends to exaggerate situations to get attention. Our parents have always taken her side, which hasn't helped. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Mark, 27M, and immediately started planning an extravagant wedding. She's the type who wants everything to be perfect and often expects others to cater to her whims. I've never been particularly close to Mark, though he's generally polite. The issue has never been with him personally, but more with how the two of them operate as a couple. They can be very controlling and self-centered, and Emily has a habit of guilt-tripping family members if things aren't done the way she wants. When Emily announced the wedding, she immediately assumed I would take on a big part of the planning. I tried to set boundaries, saying I wanted to be involved, but could only help with certain things like RSVPs and finding a photographer if needed. I made it clear that I couldn't take on large-scale responsibilities because of work and personal commitments. She seemed to accept it at first. Fast forward to last week. She called me in tears, claiming that the caterer canceled last minute and she didn't know what to do. I offered to help find alternatives online, but she got upset and said that wasn't good enough. She wanted me to physically go to the caterers and negotiate, which would have meant taking 2 days off work. I told her I couldn't do that. She then started bringing up old grievances, saying that I never do anything for her and that I only care about myself. I reminded her that I had been willing to help in other ways and had supported her in small but meaningful ways over the years. Things escalated when she accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, claiming that if I really loved her, I would drop everything to help. I tried to stay calm and explain that I have my own responsibilities and that there's no reason I should have to sacrifice my work and personal life entirely for a wedding. She refused to listen and eventually hung up on me. After that, I started hearing from other family members who were apparently caught in the middle. My mom called me and said I was being heartless and destroying family unity by not stepping in to help Emily. She told me that Emily was devastated and that I needed to make amends. My dad echoed similar sentiments. At this point, I felt extremely frustrated because it felt like I was being punished for having boundaries. I decided to write Emily a long message explaining my position and apologizing for not being able to help in the way she wanted, but also stating firmly that I couldn't rearrange my life for her wedding. Emily replied almost immediately, and her message was nothing short of an attack. She called me a disappointment, said I was selfish and immature, and suggested that maybe I wasn't welcome at the wedding anymore if I couldn't behave like a supportive sister. That was the moment I realized that attending the wedding under these conditions would not only be uncomfortable, but might also put me in a situation where I would be publicly shamed. After thinking about it for a day, I made the decision to decline the invitation. I sent a message stating that I couldn't attend the wedding due to work commitments and the stress of the past week. I expressed that I still wished her happiness, but could not participate in an environment where I felt disrespected and blamed for having personal boundaries. Since sending that message, the backlash has been enormous. Emily has gone on social media talking about how betrayed she feels, framing me as the villain who ruined her big day. My parents have both called, repeatedly, insisting that I am being unreasonable and heartless. A few of my friends have said that while they understand my reasoning, they think I might be overreacting and that family obligations sometimes require sacrifices. I'm torn because part of me feels guilty. I don't want to be the person who ruins her wedding or causes family drama. But the other part knows that attending under these circumstances would make me miserable and could damage my own mental health. I've also considered that showing up just to appease everyone might reinforce a pattern where I'm expected to prioritize Emily's happiness over my own indefinitely. I've spent the past few days reflecting on our entire relationship and past experiences, and I'm starting to realize that this pattern has been ongoing for years. I want to support my sister, but it's always on her terms and never mine. I also can't help but feel that my parents' insistence that I just attend and everything will be fine ignores the very real emotional toll of being treated unfairly and being blamed for things that aren't my fault. I've received some advice suggesting I attempt a compromise, perhaps sending a gift, writing a heartfelt letter, or offering to celebrate with her after the wedding. I've considered this, but part of me wonders if it would even matter to her, given that the conflict seems to have escalated to a point where reconciliation before the wedding might be impossible. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after the way she and my parents treated me over the past week. I feel like I'm trying to protect my mental health and maintain my boundaries, but the guilt and pressure from family are making me question whether I'm wrong for standing my ground. I want to make it clear that I am not opposed to supporting Emily in general. I just can't bend over backward and sacrifice everything for her when she refuses to respect my limits. The wedding is supposed to be a celebration, but right now it feels like a minefield, and I honestly don't think I can navigate it without being unfairly villed. I'm curious how others see the situation. Should I reconsider attending to keep the peace, or am I justified in protecting my boundaries and declining under these circumstances? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I, 28F, have always been close with my family, especially my younger sister, Lily, 25F. Growing up, we were inseparable, sharing clothes, secrets, and dreams. Our parents divorced when we were young, and I stepped in as a sort of secondary guardian for her, making sure she had support and guidance. I've always prided myself on being the responsible one in the family, while Lily was more carefree and impulsive. That dynamic worked well for years, until recently, when things started to shift in ways I couldn't ignore. About a year ago, Lily met her now fiancé, Mark, 27M. Initially, I was happy for her. He seemed charming, funny, and ambitious. My parents and I gave him a warm welcome. Over the months, however, I started noticing subtle things that made me uneasy. For example, he would make jokes at my expense, sometimes in front of Lily, and whenever I expressed concerns about certain things, he'd brush me off or belittle me. At first, I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe he was just awkward or teasing. But the pattern grew more concerning. The first real red flag was during a family barbecue. Mark got into a heated debate with my dad about politics. What started as a discussion quickly turned hostile, and Mark began mocking my dad's beliefs. I tried to intervene, asking him to calm down, and he snapped at me too, saying I was overreacting and that I didn't understand the bigger picture. I was shocked and embarrassed in front of everyone, but Lily just laughed it off. That night, I voiced my concerns to her, saying that I felt disrespected and that his behavior was aggressive and inappropriate. Lily told me I was being dramatic and that I should trust her judgment because she knew him better. I didn't push it further, but I felt uneasy. Over the next several months, the behavior didn't improve. Mark started showing passive-aggressive tendencies toward me, like making snide comments during family dinners or undermining my opinions during conversations. He would occasionally try to turn Lily against me, planting doubts about my intentions. For example, he once told Lily that I was jealous of their relationship and that I was always negative. Lily, still loyal to him, dismissed it as typical sibling rivalry. The breaking point came 2 months ago. Lily announced she was engaged and invited me to the wedding. I was initially thrilled. After all, this was my sister, and I wanted to celebrate her happiness. But then, a conversation with Mark left me questioning whether I could even attend. During a dinner where the two of us were alone with my sister, Mark started interrogating me about my agenda and why I was so critical of everything in his life. He accused me of trying to control Lily and even suggested that I had been manipulating her since we were kids. I tried to calmly explain that I only cared about her well-being and that my concerns came from love, not malice. He didn't listen and ended the conversation by saying that if I couldn't respect the boundaries of their relationship, I shouldn't expect to be involved in the wedding at all. I was devastated. I spent days debating whether to confront him again, talk to Lily, or just step back. I ultimately decided to voice my concerns one more time, hoping to salvage our family relationship. I sat down with Lily and explained that Mark's behavior made me uncomfortable and that I couldn't in good conscience participate in a wedding where I felt disrespected and unsafe. I emphasized that this wasn't about not wanting her to be happy. It was about me protecting my mental and emotional well-being. Lily was furious. She accused me of being selfish, trying to ruin her big day, and choosing a man over your family. She said that if I didn't attend, I was essentially disowning her. Our parents tried to mediate, but Lily refused to hear me out. Mark, of course, sided with her, framing me as the antagonist who couldn't handle a simple family celebration. I haven't spoken to Lily since that confrontation, and the wedding is in 2 weeks. I know I will hurt her by not attending, but I feel like being around Mark, knowing how toxic he can be, will only lead to more conflict and emotional harm for me. Friends who know the situation are divided. Some say I'm right to protect myself, while others say I should swallow my pride for my sister's happiness. I feel trapped because I don't want to lose my relationship with Lily, but I also don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm treated poorly and dismissed. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I feel like I'm standing up for myself, but I also feel like I'm letting my sister down at one of the most important moments in her life. I've considered writing a heartfelt letter or sending a gift, but I'm not sure if that's enough to maintain a relationship with her. I also worry that by stepping away, I'm giving Mark more control over our family dynamics. On the other hand, if I go, I fear I'll be silenced, belittled, and possibly humiliated in front of everyone. I want to respect her choices and happiness, but I'm struggling to see a path where I can do that without compromising my own boundaries. I'm looking for an honest assessment. Is prioritizing my mental well-being over attending the wedding unreasonable? Did I handle this the wrong way by confronting them directly? Or is this a case where my absence is justified, even if it strains my relationship with my sister? I just feel stuck between wanting to support my sister and wanting to protect myself. I want to do the right thing, but the right thing feels impossible. AITA for refusing to help my sister move after years of her criticizing my life choices. So, this is going to be long, but I need to get it all out to see if I'm in the wrong here. I, 34 am, have a younger sister, Emily, 29F. We've never been super close, but we have family ties that keep us involved in each other's lives. Our relationship has always been a bit strained, mostly because of how judgmental Emily can be. She has a habit of criticizing my choices in life, and I mean literally every choice from the car I drive to the books I read to my career path. I've tried to brush it off, but over time it's gotten exhausting. A little background on me. I work as a software engineer, which is stable, but not what I would call glamorous. I've never really cared about flashy things or showing off. I live alone in a modest apartment. I have a few close friends, and I enjoy quiet hobbies like reading, hiking, and gaming. I'm happy with my life, but Emily has always made subtle comments that make me feel like I'm failing in her eyes. She frequently posts on social media about how I need to get a life or stop wasting time. I've asked her to stop, but she brushes it off as joking. Over the years, these comments have accumulated, and honestly, they've hurt my self-esteem more than I care to admit. Emily recently got a new apartment across town and announced that she needs help moving. She started reaching out to family and friends, asking for volunteers. Normally, I wouldn't mind helping, but the context here is important. The last time I saw Emily was over the holidays, and she spent the entire visit criticizing how I didn't have a partner, how my apartment was boring, and how I wasted my life. I left early because I didn't want to argue. Since then, she sent me a few texts asking if I could help with moving day, including the typical, "You're my only sibling, so you should help me" phrasing. I didn't respond right away because I was trying to decide if I wanted to deal with the stress of her criticism again. A couple of days later, I replied politely but declined, saying that I have a lot of work obligations and personal commitments that I can't move around. I suggested that maybe she could hire professional movers or ask some of her friends to help. She replied almost immediately, furious. She said things like, "I can't believe you won't help me after everything I've done for you, and I guess my brother doesn't care about family at all." She also went on social media, subtly implying that I'm selfish, without naming me directly, though people who know us would understand the reference. When our parents found out, they called me. They said I was being cruel and ungrateful, that Emily has helped me in the past, and now I'm refusing her. I reminded them of how she's treated me for years, and they said that doesn't matter. Family helps each other. I tried to explain that I'm not refusing because I don't care, but because I've been hurt repeatedly and I don't owe her labor in that context. They told me I should get over it and just help, or at least show up for a few hours. I said no. My friends are split. Some say I'm right to protect my boundaries. Others say I should help your family when they ask. Here's the tricky part. I have helped Emily in the past, though not always without frustration. The last time she moved, I helped her for a full weekend, and she was critical the entire time. I remember her saying that my method of packing was inefficient and that I should do it right, or just not do it at all. I tried to take in stride, but it really hurt my mood and made me dread spending time with her. I also remember that she has helped me in smaller ways, like picking up a package for me or lending me money, but I've often felt like those favors come with strings attached or are used as leverage for guilt. After declining to help, Emily stopped talking to me except for snide comments on social media. Our parents are upset with me, and I feel guilty because, in theory, I want to support my sister. But I also feel like helping her move under these circumstances would reinforce years of disrespect and hurt my own mental health. I've considered that maybe I could help in some way, like ordering pizza for the movers or contributing financially. But I feel like she would interpret even that as insufficient, or worse, she'd criticize how I did it. I've been losing sleep over this, debating whether I'm being too harsh. I don't want to escalate family drama, but I also don't want to be a doormat and subject myself to more criticism. I'm worried that helping her might lead to more of the same behavior and resentment. At the same time, I know my refusal will make her angry and could strain our already fragile family relationships. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to help my sister move after years of her criticizing my life choices. I feel like I'm standing up for myself, but part of me worries I'm overreacting and should just help her, even if it's uncomfortable. How much obligation do we really have to family when past behavior has been consistently hurtful? I'm looking for perspective from people who have had similar family conflicts. Is there a reasonable middle ground here? Or am I in the wrong for prioritizing my mental health over helping my sister move? Thanks in advance. AITA for refusing to let my sister's wedding ruin my family dynamic. I, 32F, have always been close to my family, especially my younger sister, Clara, 29F. We grew up in a small town, and even as adults, we live fairly close, so family gatherings are a regular thing. Our parents are divorced, but both have always tried to stay involved in our lives. I've always considered myself the peacemaker in the family, someone who tries to keep things smooth between everyone. I take pride in that role. Clara has always been a bit more dramatic than I am, which isn't a problem most of the time, but it does make big events more complicated. She's been with her fiancé, David, 31M, for about 6 years, and over the past year, the wedding planning has become intense, to say the least. I tried to stay out of it at first, because weddings can be stressful, and I didn't want to get involved in the nitpicking and drama that often comes with them. But apparently, my distance was interpreted as me being unsupportive. Things really came to a head a few months ago. Clara and David decided on a very strict guest list for their wedding, which I understood. It's their day. However, she also decided that anyone attending had to RSVP within 24 hours of receiving the invitation, or they were automatically considered uninvited. She sent my invitation along with a note emphasizing that no exceptions will be made. I thought it was a little extreme, but I respected it. The problem started with our extended family. My cousin, who lives overseas, was supposed to attend but couldn't make the short RSVP deadline due to work commitments. I explained this to Clara, hoping she'd understand, but she insisted that the rules applied to everyone. When I tried to mediate, suggesting that perhaps a compromise could be made, she told me that I was undermining her wedding and making everything about myself. This hurt, but I tried to let it go. The next major issue involved our parents. They are divorced, and the tension between them has always been manageable but present. Clara decided that only one parent could walk her down the aisle, and after a huge argument, she chose our mother. Our father, understandably hurt, was offered a seat in the front row but not the honor of walking her. I tried to smooth things over by offering to accompany our father as his support, but Clara interpreted this as me taking sides and creating conflict. Things escalated further when Clara sent out her wedding invitations with assigned seating for the reception. She assigned me at a table with relatives I'm not particularly close with and ignored my repeated requests to sit near my husband. I tried to be flexible, thinking, it's her wedding, so I can deal with this. But she called me selfish and said I was refusing to respect her vision. At this point, I started feeling like nothing I did was right, and it was exhausting. A couple of weeks ago, Clara informed me that she and David had decided to implement a no plus ones rule for the wedding. Again, it's their choice, but my husband, 34M, had already booked time off work and planned to attend. I explained that we should have been included since we are a married couple, and that it would be weird for me to attend alone. Clara's response was to call me dramatic and impossible to please. I tried to have a calm conversation with her and David, explaining that I wanted to support them, but that the series of arbitrary rules and harsh responses were making me anxious and worried about attending. I suggested a compromise. Maybe a few of the rules could be relaxed or exceptions made in special cases. They refused, insisting that the wedding would go as planned and that anyone who didn't follow their rules didn't need to come. At this point, I realized that attending the wedding might actually harm my mental health and put me in the middle of conflicts I don't want to be part of. I explained to my sister that while I love her, I couldn't be part of a wedding where I felt constantly criticized, belittled, and forced into uncomfortable positions. I told her I would support her in other ways, helping with errands, offering to organize family photos, etc., but I would not attend the ceremony or reception. Unsurprisingly, this caused an enormous fallout. Clara called our parents and accused me of sabotaging her wedding and choosing drama over family. Our mother is hurt and disappointed, but seems to understand my perspective somewhat. Our father is upset that I won't be at the wedding at all, and my husband feels caught in the middle. Extended family members have started asking me why I'm boycotting the wedding. I've stuck to my boundaries because I genuinely feel that attending would be toxic for me. I don't want to deal with yelling, passive-aggressive comments, or rigid rules that make me uncomfortable. I've offered other ways to participate, but Clara sees that as insufficient. I feel guilty for not attending, but I also feel like I've been pushed into a corner where any choice I make is wrong in her eyes. I don't know if I'm overreacting. I know weddings are important, and I truly want my sister to have a beautiful day. But I also can't be part of an event where my presence seems to be conditional on completely surrendering my own comfort and mental well-being. Am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding under these circumstances? I want to stress that this isn't about my ego or attention. I just don't think I can handle the environment she's created without significant stress. I'm still willing to help her in other ways, and I've tried to communicate openly about my reasons. My main concern is maintaining my mental health while also trying to preserve a relationship with my sister. So, Reddit AITA for choosing not to attend my sister's wedding because of her rules and behavior, despite offering alternative ways to support her. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me over my birthday. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 34F. Growing up, we were fairly close, but as we got older, our personalities started to clash more often. Emily has always been very controlling and has a very my way or the highway mentality, while I am more laid back and tend to avoid confrontations. Despite this, I always try to maintain a cordial relationship with her because family is important to me. About a month ago, my birthday came around. I had been having a rough couple of months at work and really just want a low-key celebration with a few close friends. I mentioned this to Emily weeks in advance, just in passing, and she insisted on planning a big birthday bash for me, saying she wanted it to be a memorable event and that she already had a guest list in mind. I tried to explain that I wasn't comfortable with a big party, but she brushed it off, insisting she knew what was best. When the day of the party arrived, it wasn't just a small gathering. Emily had invited about 50 people, including distant relatives I barely knew and several coworkers I didn't like. On top of that, she had rented a hall and hired a professional photographer. I tried to politely tell her again that I didn't want all this attention, but she kept saying, "It's your birthday. You'll thank me later." I felt trapped and stressed the entire day. The party itself was a disaster for me. Emily had arranged a schedule of activities, including speeches and a fun roast section, where everyone was supposed to say something funny about me. At first, I tried to go along with it, but it quickly turned mean-spirited. People made jokes about my weight, my career, and even my love life. I laughed awkwardly, but inside I was mortified. Emily seemed to find it hilarious and didn't intervene once, even though she knew I was clearly uncomfortable. The final straw came during the cake cutting. Emily had made a huge spectacle out of it, with a choreographed entrance and confetti cannons. She handed me the knife and then, in front of everyone, made a very loud comment about how I never get things right on my own and need her to fix everything, which got a big laugh in the crowd. I was shocked and embarrassed. I excused myself and left shortly afterward, and the party continued without me. After that, I didn't speak to Emily for a few days. I felt hurt, humiliated, and betrayed. When she texted to ask why I hadn't thanked her properly, I tried to explain my feelings calmly. I told her that I felt my birthday had been ruined and that she had ignored my boundaries, making me the butt of jokes in front of people I barely knew. She responded angrily, saying I was overreacting and ungrateful for all the effort she put in. She also brought up our past childhood fights, saying I had always been the difficult one, which felt like a low blow. Fast forward to now, Emily is getting married in 2 months, and she's been sending me increasingly passive-aggressive messages about attending. She keeps saying things like, "It wouldn't be the same without my little sister there," and "I hope you're not planning to pull another disappearing act like your birthday." I finally told her that I cannot, in good conscience, attend her wedding after what happened. I explained that I still care about her, but I can't put myself in a situation where I might be humiliated again in front of family and friends. Emily exploded at my response. She accused me of being selfish, immature, and ruining her special day by refusing to be there. Our parents are taking her side and keep saying that weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events and that I should just suck it up for the sake of family. My friends and some extended relatives think I'm justified, but others keep telling me that I should forgive and forget and attend anyway. I've offered alternatives. I suggested helping with wedding planning from behind the scenes, attending just the ceremony without participating in photos, or even sending a heartfelt video message for her big day. But she refuses. She insists that if I don't attend in person, I am completely cutting her out of my life, and that this will permanently damage our relationship. I feel torn because, on one hand, I want to support my sister in a major life event. On the other hand, I genuinely fear being humiliated again, and I don't want to put myself in an emotionally unsafe situation. I've tried to reason with her, compromise, and explain my feelings, but she seems unwilling to listen. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me over my birthday. I know family is important, but I also know that emotional well-being is important, and I'm not sure where to draw the line between maintaining family ties and protecting myself from further harm. Has anyone been in a situation where a sibling crossed boundaries so badly that you felt justified skipping a major life event? How did you handle it? And did it ruin your relationship? Or did you find a way to navigate it respectfully? I'm looking for honest feedback because even though part of me feels justified, another part of me worries I might be overreacting or burning a bridge that could be repaired later. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she broke up with her boyfriend. So, this is going to be a long one, but I need to get it all out because I feel like people around me aren't seeing things clearly. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Lily, 24F, who's always been a bit impulsive. We have a good relationship overall, but sometimes our personalities clash, especially when it comes to boundaries and personal space. I live alone in a small one-bedroom apartment in the city where I work as a software developer. I've worked hard to get to where I am financially, and I value my independence immensely. About 2 months ago, Lily called me out of the blue, sobbing, telling me that she had just broken up with her boyfriend of 3 years. She said it had been mutual but messy, that he had cheated on her, and she was feeling completely lost. Her first words to me were essentially, "I don't know what to do. Can I come stay with you for a while?" I should have paused there, but I have a soft spot for my sister, so I said, "Of course you can stay. You need time to get your head straight." When she arrived, I immediately noticed how chaotic she had left her old apartment. She brought 2 large suitcases, a backpack, and a few trash bags filled with random clothes, shoes, and miscellaneous items. I helped her bring everything inside, told her to take the bedroom, and I would take the living room couch temporarily. I figured it would only be for a week or so until she could get her life back together. Well, that week turned into 3 weeks. Lily had no job lined up and wasn't actively looking for one, despite claiming she was. She spent her days sleeping in until noon, watching TV, or scrolling endlessly on her phone. She didn't offer to help with groceries or cooking, and the apartment started to feel like a war zone. There were clothes and dishes everywhere, and she would leave crumbs and food wrappers all over the living room. I started feeling resentful, but tried to remind myself she was going through a hard time. The real turning point came after a month. I work long hours, often 10 to 12-hour days, and I try to maintain a clean and quiet environment so I could decompress. Lily invited a few friends over while I was at work without asking. When I got home, the living room was trashed, the smell of alcohol was strong, and my couch, which she had claimed she would vacate for a week, was stained with wine. I was furious, but I tried to approach it calmly. I told her we needed to set some rules if she was going to stay longer. I explained that she needed to contribute to cleaning, respect quiet hours, and actively look for a job. She agreed, but things barely improved. 2 days ago, I came home from work to find her in the middle of packing again. She told me she had been offered a temporary job in another city and wanted to stay only a couple more days before moving. I agreed, but then she suddenly changed her tone and said she wasn't ready to leave because she was emotionally unstable and she didn't want to be alone. She argued that my apartment was her safe space and I should accommodate her until she figured herself out. I told her no. I explained that this was my home, my life, and I could not continue living in what had effectively become a small hostel. I told her I loved her, but I needed my space back. Lily got extremely upset. She accused me of being cold and selfish and said I didn't understand what it was like to go through a breakup. She brought up the fact that I have a partner. I do, but we live together in my apartment part-time, and implied I was prioritizing my life over her needs. She even threatened to tell my parents that I kicked her out, which I knew would cause a huge family argument. I stood my ground, explaining that helping someone doesn't mean enabling them indefinitely. She stormed out to stay at a friend's place, but sent me dozens of messages crying, guilt-tripping, and calling me a horrible sister. I reached out to my parents to explain the situation from my perspective, hoping they would understand boundaries, but they were upset with me. They told me that sisters should support each other unconditionally and that I should have been more compassionate. I tried to reason with them that supporting her doesn't mean turning my apartment into a temporary boarding house, especially when she wasn't trying to help herself. They disagreed and suggested I apologize and let her stay longer. I haven't done that because I feel it would only reinforce bad boundaries and resentment. I've had friends tell me I might be right, but a few also said I could have handled the situation more delicately, perhaps by helping her find a place or a temporary arrangement rather than strictly enforcing rules in my own apartment. I tried suggesting hostels, short-term sublets, or even family friends she could stay with, but Lily refused all of them. I feel guilty because she is my sister and clearly going through a tough emotional time, but I also feel overwhelmed and trapped in my own home. I have tried being patient, helpful, and compassionate, but I also have a life and responsibilities. I'm worried my parents will side with her in a way that will create ongoing tension, and I don't want to compromise my own mental health just to appease someone else. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me indefinitely after a breakup. I feel like I did what was necessary to protect my own boundaries, but I can't shake the feeling that maybe I should have done more, even if it's inconvenient for me. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened last year. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emily, 32F. We grew up close, but things got tense after we both moved out of our parents' house. Emily has always been a perfectionist and somewhat controlling, and while I love her, I often find myself walking on eggshells around her. Our parents are divorced, and that dynamic has only made things more complicated over the years. Last year, Emily got engaged to her now fiancé, Mark, 34M. At first, I was genuinely happy for her, but as soon as the wedding planning started, things began to unravel. Emily had made it very clear that she wanted a perfect wedding, which is fine, but she also made it clear that she expected me to comply with every single demand without question. At first, I tried to be supportive, but her requests quickly became unreasonable. She demanded I help with decorations, guest lists, and even drafting speeches, all while she criticized my suggestions and made me feel like nothing I did was good enough. The breaking point came with the bridal shower. Emily insisted I organize it entirely on my own. I spent weeks planning, booking venues, ordering flowers, and arranging food, trying to match her vision perfectly. On the day of the shower, she was furious because a few of her preferences weren't met exactly as she wanted. For example, she didn't like the arrangement of the tables and complained that the flowers weren't exactly the same shade of pink as the invitations. She then made a public scene, criticizing me in front of our friends and family. I was mortified. What was supposed to be a joyful day turned into a humiliating experience for me. I apologized repeatedly, but she refused to accept it, and some of our relatives even commented that I should have done better. After that, I started pulling back from wedding preparations, hoping things would calm down. I continued attending events, but I did the bare minimum. Emily made it clear she noticed my reduced involvement and started sending passive-aggressive messages and long texts criticizing me. She claimed I wasn't supportive enough and accused me of being selfish. I tried to explain how hurtful her behavior at the shower was, but she brushed it off and said I was overreacting. I didn't want to escalate things, so I avoided confronting her further, but it left a sour taste in our relationship. Fast forward to now, Emily has set the wedding date, and the invitations are out. Initially, I planned to attend, but then Mark called me a week ago. He seemed unaware of the tension and invited me warmly, saying they would love to have me there. I didn't want to make it about the past, so I tried to politely decline, citing personal reasons, but Emily didn't take it well. She sent me a lengthy message accusing me of being petty, not caring about family, and trying to ruin her special day. She also brought up that she had forgiven me for the bridal shower incident, implying that my refusal was a betrayal. Our parents are involved now, and they are divided. My dad says it's my choice, and I should prioritize my mental health. My mom, however, thinks I'm overreacting and should just attend the wedding to keep peace in the family. I feel trapped because attending would feel like condoning her behavior and allowing her to disrespect me again. I don't want to relive the same humiliation I experienced last year. I have tried to reason with Emily, explaining that I need space and that attending under these circumstances would be extremely stressful for me. She refuses to listen and says I'm being dramatic. Some friends have weighed in. Most understand why I might want to skip it, citing that Emily's behavior at the bridal shower was toxic and that it's reasonable to protect my mental health. However, a few people have said I'm letting a past event dictate my future actions and that family events should take precedence. They argue that missing a wedding could permanently damage my relationship with Emily. I worry about this, but I also worry about my own well-being. To complicate things, Emily has started posting wedding updates on social media, tagging me in photos and messages, which I'm not responding to. She has also started making comments at family gatherings about me being absent and not being there when it counts, which feels manipulative. I have considered attending for a few hours just to avoid conflict, but I don't think I can handle being in a room with her criticizing me again. I also feel resentful that all the effort I put into the bridal shower went unappreciated and that she publicly humiliated me for trying my best. I've considered sending a gift and a card, but even that feels inadequate because I don't want it to come across as attending in spirit while not being there physically. I feel stuck in a situation where any choice I make will upset someone. On one hand, I want to maintain family relationships. On the other hand, I don't want to sacrifice my own mental health and self-respect. I feel like Emily expects me to be punished for the bridal shower incident indefinitely, which doesn't feel fair. I have no interest in reconciling before the wedding because I know she would just continue to criticize me and potentially escalate things during the ceremony. I've tried to reach out multiple times to discuss boundaries, but she refuses to acknowledge them. I know I could go and avoid interaction, but I'm worried that any small mistake could trigger another confrontation. I have also spoken to a therapist who agrees that skipping the wedding is a valid choice given the circumstances. The dilemma is that my family is now putting pressure on me. I feel guilty about potentially letting down my dad, who wants me to attend, but I also know that forcing myself into an emotionally unsafe situation could have serious consequences for me. I'm not sure if I'm being selfish or if it's reasonable to protect myself. I love my sister, but I cannot in good conscience put myself in a situation where I am likely to be shamed and humiliated again. So AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after how she treated me last year, despite my family insisting I should go for the sake of appearances and family unity. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.